first question would be, has the showrunners, Seth MacFarlane, anybody from Family Guy ever contacted you about doing the character? And the second one will be, what's your favorite season of all time for Family Guy?
To answer your first question, I was young. I was 23 when I first started doing this. I'm going to be 34 mid-October, so I'm doing this a long time, and I didn't know about fair parody law or anything like that. So I had actually reached out to Fuzzy Door Productions and wanted to make sure that I wasn't going to get sued. And they actually told me many years ago, I think this was 2015, I think I did this the year that I went viral, that they said I came up in a table read of the possibility of doing like a live action episode. I mean, obviously it never happened, but that was the coolest thing. I was like, holy smokes, not only are they not going to fire me, they might hire me for a job. And what that ultimately, I guess, became was in season 17, episode 16, they actually referenced me on the show. And it was like kind of like a parody of a DVD commentary where like, you know, like they have like people voicing over like the episode, and Peter Griffin's like freaking out because he thinks that Lois is going to leave him, and Seth MacFarlane comes into the booth and says, "You don't have to worry about anything because none of you people are real." He's like, "Your cartoons voiced by me, Alex Borstein, Mila Kunis, and Seth Green." And he's like, "Wait, if I'm not real, then why does a fat nerd pretend to be me at every Comic-Con?" He says, "No nerds in the
That's great.
And people were like, "Were you mad?" I was like, "No." I was like, "That's like getting a song parodied by Weird Al. It's like an honor. Come on. I'm canon on Family Guy now. Peter Griffin knows who I am." I never would have thought that would have happened either. But my favorite season, it's hard to say my favorite season, but I love the Star Wars one. I'm a huge Star Wars geek.
Okay.
I've been a Star Wars fan longer than I have teeth, so that really just, you know, Carlos Spicy Wiener, and it actually, I actually ended up getting a Han Solo costume to be Peter Griffin Han Solo, and I took that to Star Wars Celebration with me, and bumped into a chicken Boba Fett, and we got some great photos. That bastard gave me a bad coupon. And apparently tonight I'm going to be fighting the giant chicken at a wrestling show. There's if you guys stop by my booth,
We're gonna be
there's a little flyer for it, so it should have more information on where to find that. I'm going to be fighting the chicken tonight.
We'll be there.
So that'll be a hell of a performance, and my second round with the chicken, because I did a backstage style wrestling show with the giant chicken at the con that I threw in Queens, and I was very green to wrestling. I never, had a wrestling match, but my best friend CJ is a professional wrestler, and we used to work at Toys R Us together way back in the day, and we used to joke about doing a wrestling match. So the opportunity presented itself when we did the con. I was like, well, you can dress up like the chicken, and we'll do the chicken fight. I put him through a garbage can and a table, and it was a hell of a show. I wish more people were in attendance for that. I think people would have flipped out for that match. And my knees were purple for like 2 weeks because I didn't wear any pads because I was stupid. And that's why I'm not going to do so much of a fight.
Peter Griffin do that anywhere?
He would not wear any pads. No, he's never prepared. It's always the most random times that the chicken just shows up, and he's just got to make a 6-piece out of it.
That's it. But thank you, I appreciate your answer.
Took that to Star Wars Celebration with me and bumped into a chicken Boba Fett, and we got some great photos. That bastard gave me a bad coupon. I won, and everybody within earshot heard that and were like, holy shit, that guy's Peter Griffin. And then my friends that I was with kind of like were off somewhere else getting an autograph from somebody. I don't know who it was. And they were like, what's all this commotion? They thought Stan Lee walked in or something, because I literally had a ring of people around me. And I never experienced anything like this in my life up until that point. Now I've done it a million times. But it was just really, really funny how that was, the birth of something so big and so instrumental in my life. Because I figured that was my 15 minutes of fame. I was very much one of these fall to the cracks kind of like kept to myself. I was, funny with my friends and family, but like I wasn't like an outgoing guy like that. And I guess because it afforded me the ability to be somebody that I'm not, I just improvised that entire day as Peter Griffin. I didn't break character 1 second. I did the voice the entire day, 5 hours walking around driving my friends crazy. And we went home. It was like the most epic day of my life up until that point. And I figured that was it, go back to my normal life, go back to my job. And it was a little bit of a while later, because that was October of 2012. And then I remember being at a 4th of July barbecue the very next year, and somebody said, "You're trending on Reddit." And first of all, I was like, what the hell is trending? And number two, I was like, I don't even have a Reddit. Like, how do they know who I am? So somebody had posted like a vertical video of me that was like filmed on a potato of me doing some monologue as Peter Griffin at New York Comic Con. And people went nuts with it. It got like 500,000 views. I was like, holy snap, I can't believe that people still are into this. So that very year, 2013, there was a con called Great Allentown Comic Con. And there was a costume contest. See, I do 2 costumes. I do Peter Griffin, and I also do a wrestler named Sergeant Slaughter, because he was also a G.I. Joe, and I was part of a G.I. Joe cosplaying group called The Finest. And we were going to do a music video that they did in the show. We were going to recreate that. So I was dressed head to toe like Sergeant Slaughter and melted because the air conditioner was broken in this venue. I was sweating. I could see why Sergeant Slaughter was so cranky in the ring, because that hat does not breathe. And I brought Peter Griffin with me because I figured, people want to see this costume. I'm going to bring him to conventions with me from now on because it's more comfortable and it's something I could change into if I have to. So I changed it to Peter Griffin. I heard a commotion in like the panel room right next to where the bathrooms were where I changed. And I went over there, and it happened to be the costume contest. And the two of the judges were Riddle, she calls herself Riddle, she's a famous cosplayer, and then Nicole Marie Jean, who's another famous cosplayer. I didn't know them at the time, but I jumped on the back of the line, and I'm like cracking jokes here and there as Peter, and I have people chuckling on the line and stuff. And I get to the front, and I grab the microphone, and it's like, I'd like 2 hot dogs, or wait. This isn't a cafeteria. Damn it, Meg, you told me this was a cafeteria. And these girls are sitting there looking at me like, what the fuck is happening right now? Like, is this guy like for real? And I did my little spiel. I went to the back of the room, figuring, just crashing the costume contest. I wasn't gonna win. I was wearing green pants and a white shirt. It's not fair for me to win. And they asked me to come back to the front. I was like, oh great, they could probably yell at me for making all the jokes about everybody's costumes. And they were like, can you keep the crowd entertained while we try to figure out who the winners are? Now, I had never like performed in a public forum like this where you just put me on the spot and I just had to get up and go. But somehow I was able to improvise my way through a stand-up routine as Peter Griffin, working the crowd. I had Goku LARPing against Superman in the crowd. It was really very funny. And somebody from a website called Kotaku happened to be there and wrote a whole article and posted a video of me doing the stand-up routine. And that got even more views than the vertical video from New York Comic Con. I think that got like 1.5 million views. I was like, damn, people really want this. So one of my best friends, Eric, that I used to work at my previous job at, went to Quinnipiac College, and 2 of his roommates were film students. And he showed them the video of me doing that stand-up routine, and they're like, we love this guy. We want to kind of do a deeper dive and find out, why does he do this, and, how did this whole thing start, like to tell the official story of the real life Peter Griffin. So he asked me, I remember I was sitting by a pool at Dragon Con in Atlanta, Georgia, which if you've never been there, it's like nerdy gras. It's like literally like days of partying, like 4 o'clock in the morning getting beers with Batman, partying. And I was like, yeah, what do I care? I was like, I'm going to get my own New York Comic Con tickets. I can't get them for other people. They're like, oh, don't worry about that. They're gonna follow you around with a camera. They're gonna come to your house the night before, and they're just gonna interview you. And they ask you, about Comic Con and why you go there, what does it mean to you, And I did that interview, and I was very candid about it. You know, I've always been an open book. I'm not a bullshit artist. I've never been good at that. So I laid it all out there. You know, I'm a cosplayer because it makes me feel good. You know, I go back to my mundane job and I live my mundane life, but then I go to these conventions and people are pulling out their phones like I'm some kind of celebrity. And it was like this high that I was chasing almost. So that was New York Comic Con 2014. We didn't post the video until January 15th. They had 20 plus hours of footage of me walking around in this interview and this and that, and they whittled it down to like 3 minutes and change. And we posted this video, and my God, did that thing go viral immediately. I think by the end of the first or second day, we had well over 3 million views. To this day, it's 17 million views and climbing, that one video. And that's what changed everything for me. Inside Edition sent a car to my house and interviewed me at the Palisades Mall. Entertainment, people, I mean, you name it. If there was a media outlet, there was an article about me. And the most surreal thing was that there were people talking about me in countries and languages that I can't speak. And it's like, Peter Griffin, Robert Franzese. I'm like, these people are talking about me. Like, what did I do? I'm just dressed up like a cartoon character. I'm doing something that a million other people are doing. But I guess what set me apart from like the typical cosplayer is that I personified the character. I was able to improvise, I was able to voice act, and kind of pair all of that together to create the perfect storm. That's the real life Peter Griffin. And honestly, to this day, I mean, yes, you know, it's been financially kind to me over the years because I now have Cameo, I have a monetized YouTube channel, and that wasn't a straight, you know, to stardom kind of thing. I've learned some hard lessons about life, about trusting friends, and you know, I've had to start over again multiple times. You know, when I created my LLC, my friends didn't want to do it anymore, so I ended up having to buy them out and start over. Then another friend kind of like took advantage of me kind of like undervaluing myself, because that's always been one of my biggest problems. I've always undervalued myself, and that's probably why I haven't gone further with the Peter Griffin thing. And I ended up having to create a whole new YouTube channel and a whole new Facebook page, because that all got taken away from me. But from that, I don't know if it was spite or inspiration, but I ended up getting myself to learn how to edit my own videos, get the gear that I needed to shoot them professionally. And I'm a one-man production team now, and I have a silver play button on YouTube, which is insane. I think I'm at 322,000 subscribers on YouTube. I got over 600,000 on TikTok now. That was another one that they kind of dragged me into and landed me back on Inside Edition. Inside Edition ended up interviewing me a second time because of my TikTok, because I did, hey Lois, diarrhea, and people, 10 million views. You believe that? 10 million views. Hey Lois, diarrhea. Hey, right about kids one day, hey Dad, what's your legacy? Well, I have a long story about that, kiddo. And you know, it's to this day, I've never been great at making myself happy, but making you guys happy and getting a room to laugh is where I get my happiness from. I really do. I love absorbing and empathing the hell out of happiness that I bring out. And you know, if it's a simple "shut up, Meg," and people just, you know, that's it. That's all it takes. And it's really afforded me a lot of life experiences that I never would have had otherwise. I got a passport and went to Canada. Now I'm here in Texas. It's my very first time in Texas. I'm very excited to be here and meet all you lovely people and see a whole new set of smiling faces. Because, you know, I go to the same conventions over and over. I've been going to New York Comic Con almost every year since 2012 when I started going to it. And, you know, it kind of gets jaded when you do the same thing over and over again. New York Comic Con is something to behold, don't get me wrong, it's a huge con. But I've always loved these kind of smaller cons because they're more intimate, you know, you get to meet people, you get to speak to people. At New York Comic Con, it's like, hey, can I grab a picture? And then it's like, all right, well, 40 other people are waiting for me to take a picture. So I really can't like get to have that little interaction. And I absolutely love it. And I'm sorry if I'm not doing this whole thing as Peter. I know people want the Peter thing. But yeah, it's it's really been a whole lot of fun, and I have my friend Mandy as my real life Lois, and no, we're not a couple, but we're incredibly close friends, and she's one of my best friends in the world, and we still do the real life Peter and Lois Griffin thing. And my friend Anya, unfortunately, is Meg. And my original Meg was Ivy Doom Kitty, if you guys have ever heard of that cosplayer. She's based out of California, and she went viral with cosplay long before I even did. And I ended up meeting her at a con called Atlantic City Boardwalk Con that they used to have. And she dressed up like Meg at that con so we could meet up, and we made some funny videos. But Anya was the one that stuck, because I actually, in 2018, threw my own convention. A lot of people don't realize. It was a little smaller con in Corona, Queens, where they had the original World's Fair in the 60s, and I believe in the 30s before that. And there's like the Queens Theater over there, and I fought the chicken live on stage at that con. Now, my original idea was to have a whole Family Guy themed convention, but we didn't have the capital to really pull off what my vision was. But I wanted to have a dunk booth with a Meg inside. And you just throw the ball and Meg gets dunked. We could have made a fortune off that. I would have spent my own money. But my friend Anya was a really good sport and offered to be the Meg for the dunk tank. We couldn't get the permit for the dunk tank, but she had already bought the stuff from Meg, so she ended up kind of becoming our de facto Meg. And now I have like this little, Griffin family, and my cousin's baby. I dressed him up like Stewie last year when I went to visit them in Pennsylvania last year. And that I did another TikTok with him when I tell him, when you poop in your dreams, you poop for real. And that's another one that went viral. And they played that on Inside Edition. I'm like, great. But it's just really funny, and to think like 10 years later, I'm still doing this thing. I'm still making people laugh with a cartoon character that came out over 20 years ago now. I remember watching Family Guy in high school. Like, I didn't watch it when it was on the air. It was already canceled the first time, and my friend had the DVD collection of the first 3 seasons. And he would lend me disc by disc, one at a time. And I watched the first 3 seasons and thought, this show's hysterical. There's no line they won't push. There's no joke they won't tell. And it was like almost like a fresher take on The Simpsons, because The Simpsons at that time kind of got stale. They were the kings of comedy in like the 90s, but I would say in the 2000s, Family Guy was the show.
Yes.
And I know, like, when I first started doing this, Family Guy was a little more relevant than it is now, but it still blows my mind to see how excited people get when they see Peter Griffin today. Like, every time I think, well, they're just going to cancel the show and I'm not going to be able to do this anymore. It just keeps coming back, and I'm really grateful to the folks at Bonsai Con for having me out here, and I always try to tell my fans, like, if you want to meet me, please let your local cons know, and I'd be more than happy to come out and meet the fans, and create a whole new audience to make laugh. People that haven't heard my old jokes yet, But, that's really the story of the real life Peter Griffin, how I started it, how I continue to do it. I do the cameo videos for shout-outs, for businesses, for personal needs. I've done them for divorces. I've done them for everything. You finally got rid of that bitch. It's really funny, some of the things that they tell me to, like, say. And, like, sometimes I have to say no. I'm like, I'm not saying this. Career ending. No, not doing it. But I think I'm going to open it up to questions. Does anybody?
Your experience flying down here, did people recognize you, or people ask you you look like him, or did
At the
know
airport, I didn't get it, but I get it all the time. I get it at the supermarket. I have been recognized in the most random of places. I got recognized at 2 o'clock in the morning at Jamaica train station in Jamaica, Queens.
That must have been a truth.
I got recognized immediately upon going to Boston, and I'm not even kidding. I went to Boston Comic Con, one of my best friends, Vin, and his mom lived just outside of there in a town called Peabody. We went there, we stopped at his house, we drove for 4 hours to get there. My legs were cramping. So we get there, she's like, oh, let's go to a bar. And I was like, oh, we gotta go back in the car. But we get in the car, we go to this bar, maybe like 15 minutes away from her house, and we go into the place, and there's like 4 girls behind the bar, and they start giggling and run in the back. And then their father comes out and says, I'm the owner of the bar. He's like, my daughter said that you're famous on the internet, and they want to know if you can get a picture with you. I was like, I literally just stepped into the first bar in New England ever in my entire life, and they know who I'm Peter Griffin. It's just really funny, the location and all that stuff. But it's just the most, I just, how many people, I wish I got $1 for every time somebody walked up to me and said, you look familiar. But the trip to Texas wasn't bad. I woke up super early though, that was the thing, because New York is an hour earlier than Texas time. So I woke up at like 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, New York time. Hopped on like an 8:30 flight. Got here for whenever I got here. That was like a 4 or 5 hour flight. Then they flew me to Dallas, and then Dallas to McAllen. So that was like another hour and a half. And then they picked me up and drove me another hour and a half to get to South Padre Island. And then I got to the convention center, I checked it out a little bit. Finally went back to the hotel, ordered a Whataburger, hopped in the hot tub, and then knocked the hell out because I needed to sleep for at least an hour, because then we ended up getting together last night with some of the voice actors, and that's really cool. That always blows my mind, because like I get to hang out with these people that are doing the career that I wish I could be doing. Voice acting has always been like a passion of mine. I just always love making people laugh. My one talent in this world to change my voice to something else. I have a question back there. Buc-ee's? Is it a?
It's like the Disneyland of Texas.
No. This is my very first. My experience in Texas was I flew to Dallas, I flew to McAllen, I got driven here. I didn't really get to go around. And Texas is a big ass state.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you know, you got a big state when you have to fly from one part of the state to the other. I live on Long Island. The entire thing is like 188 miles. Like the entire thing. In an hour and a half, like I could be out of New York. You know, like completely, and be in Jersey or Connecticut or whatever. Like here, it's like an hour and a half. It's like, oh, I went to the next town. Oh shit!
That's what got me when I first got out here.
It's insane, but I love it. You know, and my dad was a little jealous that I got to do this trip, because my dad has been obsessed with cowboys since he was a little kid. And this is the land of cowboys. It's freaking Texas. So I got to admit, I was expecting to see a lot more cowboy hats when I got here. Because my dad walks around in New York with a cowboy hat every day, and he doesn't care. And people call him the city slicker. But I said, you know, if you come to Texas, you probably look like just everybody else here. But you know, this is, I mean, obviously this is like a anime convention. There's not too many cowboys in anime, but yeah. I'm kind of disappointed there's not like a hat store I can go like get him a new cowboy hat, because he's wearing this hat for years, and it used to be a black hat, but that way now it looks like almost like a rawhide brown leather hat, because he's just worn it so much. And he was like, I don't want a new hat. I like my old hat. I'm like, all right, whatever. But what else? What else you guys?
That you had that afforded you to go to all these.
Well, I worked at a credit union. There was a little local credit union, the same one that I was the Santa Claus at, and it was a stifling job. It didn't lend itself to the creative mind. Like, you weren't even able to like change your wallpaper on the computer you worked on every day, and it was like, and what pisses me off is that like I let them crush me in that job. Like, I had the opportunity to fly out to Los Angeles and interview Snoop Dogg, and I had to turn it down because they wouldn't give me off. And I needed the job and the health benefits and all that stuff. But I vowed after that, I would never let a job stop me from having a life experience again. And I really held strong to that. And I ended up kind of like telling them to go F themselves the second time that I had an opportunity to go to California. And I did follow through with it. There was this company called Jam City that makes mobile games. And they make the Family Guy mobile game called Another Freaking Mobile Game. And they flew me to Los Angeles to advertise that game with none other than Adam West. So I got to meet Adam West before he died. It was really amazing. It was like a month and a half before he died. You wouldn't even know he was sick. He was a really, really nice guy. He was, you know, it was like, how's it going there, Mayor West? You know? I got to hear him sing the Adam West song, and it was really a surreal experience. And that's just what I'm talking about with these life experiences that I've had with this. It's really hysterical. Like some of the adventures that I've had, and you know, I almost wish that I had like somebody to follow me around with a camera just to capture all the shit that I've done over the years. And it's not just Peter Griffin. Like when I met Roger Bumpus, who's the voice of Squidward on SpongeBob, I was going back and forth with the guy as SpongeBob. I was like, "Hey Squidward, I finished those errands. How about now? How about now?" And that was a whole experience that was never on film. When I met Ian McDiarmid from Star Wars, he played the Emperor. I had a cackle off with him, and he never does that with fans. Because it was the last thing I did at one of the cons that hired me. It was Tampa Bay Comic-Con. And it was the last thing I wanted to do before hopping on the plane to go home. Because my niece is a huge Star Wars fan, and I was like, I'm getting her the Emperor's autograph. Now, what's really cute is she was really small when I got this. So she was afraid that I was going to meet the Emperor and he was going to turn me to the dark side. That's how small she was. But the last thing I did before hopping on a plane was I went on Ian McDiarmid's line and was taking forever. And the people realized who I was, and they were like, "You got to hop on a plane. Like, just go to the front of the line, get the autograph, and go." So I went up to the girl to takes the money to buy the prints, and I couldn't help myself. I was just like, and he stops signing, looks up and says, "That was very good." I was like, I have to say, Mr. McDiarmid, though, my absolute favorite is the cackle. And he starts doing it back. And it was the most amazing thing I ever saw. I was like, why is this not on film? God, if somebody got that on film, I really hope they come to light with it at some point. Because that was... if I had a cameraman or somebody following me around, like, a lot of these experiences probably tickle a lot of other people too. Any other questions?
Or Universal Studios?
No, that would be cool. That would be really cool. I mean, I've been to Florida for conventions, but I've never been like hired by like an official company like that to do something like. I guess the closest would be the Jam City flying me out to do work for the mobile game. And what's really funny is they actually had me record some lines as Peter for the game in other languages, because I guess they didn't have time to have Seth MacFarlane record Peter Griffin in German. So like they just like, this is how you say it as Peter Griffin. Okay. I did it. So there was a bunch of different languages that I don't know, it's like little clips that I had to say. But that was really cool. I'd love to become a voice actor one day. That's the end goal, I guess, because that's one of the few talents I really have. Like, I can manipulate my voice to do a lot of characters. And it wasn't Peter Griffin that started it all. When I was a little kid, I could do Yoda and Grover, and, you know, it blew my mind that Frank Oz was the voice of both of them, Miss Piggy, Fozzie the Bear. I was like, holy shit, one guy did all of these voices? And then you realize Mel Blanc did almost all the Looney Tunes, and like, those guys were like my heroes. And one of the coolest things I found on eBay, because I was going through a phase of like spending insane amounts of money on eBay, but I found, and I framed this and have it up on my wall. It says, my name is Robert, my real name is Robert, and I found on eBay an autograph of Mel Blanc that said, "Hi Robert" on it. I was like, holy shit, I have to have this, and I have it up there, and I feel like he's kind of like watching out for me up there, and maybe he can help me, you know, become a voice actor myself one day. And it's cool, you know, it's really, really cool to be able to do these things and have a platform here. I mean, I'm sitting here with a room full of strangers that want to hear about my life. Like, jeez, it's crazy. It's crazy to me. It still blows my mind. And I've done all this stuff, and it still blows my mind. So thank you all for being here. That was surreal, because like, I was still kind of just doing it for pleasure at the time. I was just, you know, traveling on my own dime, paying to get into these conventions. And one of the first ones to really like offer to pay me to be there was Niagara Falls Comic Con. So not only was I going to get paid to be at a con, I got to travel to a whole nother place I'd never been. And let me tell you, those people are super, super nice. Like, I got there and I made friends with this guy, Steve, that was one of the security guys. He was a volunteer firefighter. And he took me around Niagara Falls, showed me all of the landmarks. He showed me these like temples that were shipped over during World War II. He showed me this giant clock made out of flowers. And I ended up riding over the Canadian border with Jay Muse, which was hilarious because I was like, please don't have weed on you. God, the dog just slipped in the car. But yeah, that was such a good time. And that was really a surreal experience for me too, because that was the first time I was ever in a green room too. So I'm sitting there eating lunch with Brian O'Halloran from Clerks, Lucas from Stranger Things, and Charles Martinet, the voice of Super Mario. And the table next to us has Robert Englund and one of the Dukes of Hazzard. And I'm like, what the hell is this right now? Like, this is like the most random assortment of people. And they're all famous, and they're all like we're all occupying the same space. And I was like, that is pretty freaking cool. That is absolutely awesome. But like, I'm still humbled to this day that like people still want to have me come out to these things. Because, you know, in my own life, you know, I look in the mirror, I see an unremarkable person. But then, you know, you just turn on the racial dish. I'm like, yeah, people love it. You know, it's fantastic. What else we got? No, I got to meet David Prowse, who was in the original Darth Vader costume for the original 3 movies. And kind of funny, who physically bumps into me while I'm waiting on that line is Jeremy Bullock, who was the original Boba Fett's actor. I've met Mark Hamill. I've met Carrie Fisher. I've met Peter Mayhew. I saw Anthony Daniels on stage when I got to see Star Wars in concert, which was one of the dopest things I've ever seen in my entire life. It was a full symphony orchestra playing the Star Wars music with like scenes from the movies on this giant movie screen. And it was at this place called the Nassau Coliseum on Long Island. They've knocked it down since and rebuilt a new stadium there. But it was like a big hockey ring, and like there was like an outer ring from the actual venue. And in this entire ring, on loan from Skywalker Ranch, was all of the original props of the original movies. They had Darth Vader's costume for the original Star Wars. They had Luke Skywalker's handle, like his actual hilt of his lightsaber. Han Solo's blaster, Princess Leia's gown from the award ceremony. Like the stuff they had on display at this thing was absolutely insane. But that was the closest I got to meet him. I'm trying to think of other people from Star Wars that I've met. I mean, I went to Star Wars Celebration. I saw Warwick Davis walk down the hallway. I bumped into John Boyega. I saw Hayden Christensen on stage. It was, yeah, that was a really fun experience going to Star Wars Celebration. I met the guy that created the 501st. Ray Park stopped a line of thousands of people to say hi to me because he saw me at a con once before. I met Steve Bloom at that con. It was really cool because he does Zeb on Rebels, but he's a legendary voice actor. And for the weebs out there who don't know who Steve Bloom is, he is Spike Spiegel from Cowboy Bebop. And that's another thing that blows my mind, is when I meet these celebrities and they know who I am before I meet them. And one of the ones that surprised me the most was at New York Comic Con once. I met John DiMaggio, who was the voice of Jake the Dog, Bender. He does like a million voices over all these years. You know him. You know him from something. And I was like, oh my God, it's Bender Bending Rodriguez. He's like, oh my God, it's the real life Peter Griffin. I was like, you know who I am? And it's like, I guess my reputation precedes me more than my stomach does, yeah? But it's a super awesome experience. Questions? Going once? Going twice?
So you never met the Mandalorian?
The Mandalorian? No, but I did meet the armorer, the lady that plays the armorer. She's super sweet. I just met her this year. She was at a con on Long Island by me called Eternal Con, and Her name is Emily Swallow. She also was on a show called Supernatural. I never saw Supernatural. I never watched that show. The real life Meg is a huge fan of Supernatural, so I told her about that, and she ended up giving me an autograph for free for her because she couldn't make it to the con. But some of these people are some of the most gracious, celebrities I've ever met, and I that's why I love coming to these shows to see who I can meet, and not just celebrities, but even the fans. Like, it kind of reminds me, why am I doing this? I was starting to get burned out a little bit in the end of 2019 because I had been doing this like constantly for years, and I was like, you know what? I think I'm going to take 2020 off, and then the world ended, so I kind of had to anyway. And then they're like, you know what, Rob? Take another year off. Okay, I guess I'll take 2 years. So this year was the first return to conventions that I've done since before the pandemic hit. And I'm really, really happy that I'm able to get back to this stuff because, you miss it after a while. And traveling, and this is the first time I was on planes since the pandemic. And I went to the cons on Long Island, and that was kind of like the diet, going back to cons for me. And now, full-fledged going back and doing bookings. And like I said, if you guys want me back, let your local cons know, and I'd be more than willing to come back and make you guys laugh all over again with a "Shut up, Meg."
Today, but he loves your YouTube, and I was wondering if we can get like a "Damn it, Meg."
Yeah, I can do that. Damn it, Meg! Why didn't you come to my freaking panel? Thank you. Shut up, Meg.
Thank you.
My pleasure. Top 3 anime. Number 1 is One Piece. Number 2 is probably going to still be Dragon Ball Z. And number 3, probably Cowboy Bebop. Cowboy Bebop's up there for me. I love that show. But then there's some tough ones too, because I like Demon Slayer a lot. That might be number 4 for me. Jujutsu Kaisen's fantastic. One Punch Man's fantastic. Even the Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood was outstanding. Samurai Champloo was great. But those would be my top 3, I would say. Got any more questions?
Tell us your anime waifu.
My anime waifu?
Yes.
God. Do I have to name one? Jeez. Oh, that put me on the spot. I'm trying to think now. There's so many. I mean, I love fucking Chi-Chi, and I love
It's not even One Piece, right?
Nami. I do love Nami. I love Nico Robin. I love fucking, what's her name? Boa Hancock, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Boa Hancock's a cutie. Hell, even the, what's her name? Bonnie, the one that eats. And then Yamato,
Yeah.
the one that thinks she's Odin. And, I mean, there's a lot of good ones in One Piece. And, even the girl from Seven Deadly Sins, what's her name? Yeah.
Or Diana?
No, the Elizabeth. Yeah. God, it's like an endless list of waifus from anime. But my titty mouse pad at home is not me. I've always had a thing for redheads, clearly. What else you got for me? Be kind to everybody. You never know, what people are going through. And sometimes people have come up to me and they're like, your videos have changed my life. Because I was going through a hard thing. And your video helped pull me out of literal depression. And I'm sitting here hating on myself and I'm changing somebody else's life. So I gotta learn to love myself a little more. I think that's kind of what I've been working on lately. And it's getting better, bit by bit. But I would say that always be kind. And even if they're not kind to you, just don't go out of your way to not be kind. What else you guys got for me? We just got here, and we're about to head into Bonsai Con, and it's going to be a freaking epic day.
Huh? I'm not sure. Where's that one?
See, that's a private explosive. Here we go. Hey, there he is. How's it going, pal? Put on my old, my ice here, and, that's it. Tell me, guys. Hi, guys. Good morning.
Oh, that's what I did.
Good morning. Good morning.
Oh, hi!
Hi, guys. Good morning. Hello. Now this is all cool. Oh, there's Zorro. We're making our way to the old Bookaroni. Here we go. Good morning. And here we are. And this is where I will be located for the weekend. And I think there's going to be a party going on tonight. So if you guys are in South Padre Island, Texas, be sure to stop by and meet me. Look at that, much better.
He's not missing an eye anymore.
I was kind of like that for a while there.
All right.
Rasengan!